that I started this journey some years back as a fashion designer, and one of the things that I've learned over the years is the method of pattern drafting, which has really helped me, especially in my ready-to-wear journey. It also applies to bespoke. Um, Pattern drafting is like you having a framework for your design. That means each time you want to design for a person, you wouldn't have to just carry your fabrics and start putting things on it to create your design. Because in any profession, there must be templates, there must be how things are being done. And that is why pattern drafting is very critical. It's very important to a fashion designer because it helps you to get all your game together. So, and I became very passionate about this because I see that a lot of people don't really have standards when it comes to designing. So you get the fit today, tomorrow the fit is floppy, your customer is complaining. You have a ready to wear, you can already create and get exact size each time you want to do it. And so that's why I felt that a lot of people need to know about this method and the reason for this class. So I wouldn't want to bore us too much with a lot of talk. The class is a beginner class, like I said in the flyer, and what we're starting with is the basic skirt. So what do we mean by basic skirt? Basic skirt is like having a foundational pattern that you can use to design any style of skirt, and it has to be in a particular size. So it means that if you want to draft a basic skirt, you can say, okay, I want to draft a basic skirt for size 8 or a basic skirt for a particular size. It could be a bespoke. Maybe you have measured your clients or even yourself. You have written down your measurements and you want to use that measurement to create that basic skirt. So it applies to sizes. You can't use one size to create. A lot of people think that when we say pattern drafting, what we mean is that if you have one pattern, you use it for several sizes. No, it doesn't work like that. Your patterns are created to size, per size. So for this class, we're going to be starting with our basic skirt. And as we all know, there are measurements that you take before you can say you want to design for a particular size. So these measurements are what I call the basic measurement. And I want to believe that we can see this my screen. Yeah. So I have the measurements written down here. So I would like to just tell you about the measurements and then we go into the drafting process. So for the basic skirt, we have two main measurements that are very important, which is the waist measurement and the hip measurement. I believe we all know what this means. The measurements around your waist and the measurement around your hip. You're going to take that. So after taking that measurement, there's also the measurement you take from your side at your waist down to your hip line. That is what I call the side hip depth, which are written down here. Please, I hope we can see my screen. If you cannot see my screen, just let me know. I've put something on the screen for us, which are the measurements that I'm going to be using for this particular script. And I have my size 8 measurements here. This measurement can be any measurement that you want. It could be your own, it could be your client's own. But make sure you measure accurately. So after doing that, you have your measurements written down. I've said the waist measurement, measurements around your waist, the hip measurement, then the step length. So for basic skirt, because it is a foundation skirt. You just need the length to get to your knee. If you are going to do a long skirt, you would have to extend the length as you desire. So you have your skirt length, and then the side hip depth. I was talking about the side hip depth. The side hip depth is the measurement you take that we normally call our hip length. Some people call it hip length in Korean, they call it hip length. But you take from the side waist down to the level of your hip. That is your side hip depth. Then we have dart placement. Dart placement means where you're going to place your dart, because you can't just place your dart anywhere on your skirt. And your skirt, to have good fit, must have dart. So for this measurement, this is my own size 8 on my ready to wear size chart that I've written down the measurement. So for this measurement, my skirt length is okay. So my waist is 28. Hip is 38, the skirt length is 25 inches, then the side hip depth is 8.5, and that placement is 3.25. So I'll start with graph straight away, and I'll be explaining all these measurements. So the first thing I want to do is to take this my side hip depth that I've talked about. I'm going to deduct a 1/4 inch from it. So I have side hip depth. I've explained what. So if you have questions, please, you can note it down so that when, yeah, you can put in the chat box. So I'll attend to it after this first session. So please, everyone should mute so that we can all hear, so that there will be no disturbance. Please, you can mute yourself. Sorry, I need to read this. Sorry, please, this was very quick. Everyone should mute, please. Noise is coming from somewhere. Please, in the message, kindly mute yourself, please. Don't know if you can hear. Have you? Some people I think they can't hear. I don't see anything. Okay, so sorry for the break. So please, I was saying that I was talking about the side hip depth. I said that with the measurement you take from your side waist to your hip level. So I have 8.5 here. So from that 8.5, so please, we'll be doing a lot of calculations. These calculations are not difficult. All you need to do is pay attention. We are all following. Pay attention and note down the things that you hear. If you have issues understanding anything, note it down. We'll attend to it during the question time. So I said the side hip depth for this measurement is 8.5. So I'm going to deduct a 1/4 inch from this 8.5. That will give me 8.25. So I'll put that 8.25 aside. Now, this is the paper I'm going to be using for this drafting. Please pay attention here, because if you don't get it here, you might be confused. I have a paper here. The length of this paper is the skirt length. I've measured my skirt length. So what I did was to create a margin, because normally this is the length of my paper and this is the breadth of it. But I don't want to start from the edge of the paper on top, because it's usually cumbersome if you do that. So I came down 1 inch at the edge of this paper, up to the width of the paper, and I moved a line to it. The length from that line that I ruled is just the length of my skirt, which is 25 inches long. I'm moving my paper so you can see the length. See where it reaches, 25 inches. That length is 25 inches. So now for the width of my paper, to determine the width of my paper, I took my back hip. I'm still going to talk about how I got, because in pattern drafting, your front measurement is not the same as your back measurement for the 3 circumferences. I'll say that again. For your bust, waist, and hip measurement, it is wrong, because in freehand, that is what most people do. It is wrong to divide by 4 and use it straight for the same thing for both front and back. It doesn't work that way. Your feet will have problems. The reason is that the distribution of the body at the front is different from the back for all the circumferences that I mentioned. Your bust, your waist, your hip. They are the 3 most important circumference measurements in pattern drafting. I hope this is clear. So, for our hip measurement, the measurements I put there, I'm going to explain it. But let me say what formed the width of this paper for me, because it's also okay to plan your paper if you don't want to waste paper. So I just picked my back hip measurement. I multiplied by 2, and then I added 4 inches. So this gave me the width of the paper that I had here. My back hip measurement times 2 plus 4 inches. That gave me this width that I have here. So now I'm going to be talking about how I got my back hip measurement, because that's the first thing we'll be putting on this paper now. So my hip measurement is 38 inches, as I wrote down here. So 38 divided by 4. Now you can see what I'm writing. 38 divided by 4 is going to give me 9.5. That is 9.5. So now this is my hip. So for the hip, the back of the hip should be more than the front. The reason is because of the buttocks. So to get my back measurement here, I'm going to take this 9.5 and add a quarter inch to it. For someone that is a medium size. If it is plus size, you can add up to half. So if I add a quarter inch to my 9.5, my back it becomes 9.75. Then for my front hip, this 9.5, I'm going to deduct whatever I add to front, I will deduct from back. Whatever I add to back, I will deduct from front. That is in either case. So for the hip, the back is more than the front. So I'm going to add to the back. I'm going to deduct from the front. So I've added to the back now, a quarter inch to the back. So from the front, I'm going to remove a quarter inch. So front will be 9.5 minus a quarter inch. That will give me 9.25. Please, if you understand, please let me know if you understand what I just did. You can comment in the chat box to say yes, I understand. Please, I need your answer. Okay. Nick Herbert said, I can't see or hear anything. I hope you can now. Because I'm just reading these messages now. Let me quickly go through them. Someone said, I see your face and paper but can't hear you. Hope that is resolved now. Please. Okay, okay. Good, good. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I understand. I understand. All right. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, so we can proceed. Yeah. So now that I've explained it for the people, I'm still going to come to the way. So let's take care of the kids first. Because I've also explained earlier that the size if depth that we talked about, that I said is 8.5, I said you remove a quarter from it. That will be your center front hip depth. Just put that center front hip depth idea somewhere. Because you might be wondering where I'm charting it. I'm still going to explain. So now, I was explaining my paper. I said my paper is divided. Okay, my paper is if my back hip, I said this back hip now, we've been able to calculate our back hip, which is 9.75 now. So this 9.75, I just rounded it up to 10 because I don't want to stress my hip. So I said 10 times 2, this is 20. I'm explaining my paper with now that I said earlier. 10 times 2 gives me 20, and then I added 4. So we have that gives us 24 inches for the width of the paper. I'll explain how I got the length. So for the width of the paper, that is 24 inches. So as you can see, this paper is divided into two. All right, there's a question. Let me attend to that. Okay. Why did you add 4? Okay, thank you. The reason why I added 4 is I wanted enough space. That 4 is not really anything particularly, but I want enough space to be able to plot my pattern on both sides. And you will see it when I'm done. Yeah. Is there any other question? Okay, so I think we can go on. All right, so after doing that, okay, so I said 24 inches now. So I came and divided the paper into 2. The reason is that for skirt pattern, you are drafting, I can't see your pattern. That's chisel. I hope you can see now. Are you seeing the screen? Okay, so now I said we're drafting front and back skirt side by side. Okay, so another thing I need to explain is this. In freehand, if you want to cut anything, you cut the front first and then you cut the back, or whichever one. You cut the front and then you cut the back. And usually when you're cutting either of them, you fold maybe skirt, you fold your fabric into 2 to cut, especially if both sides, left and right, if it is the same. For designs that you have different thing on the left against what is on the right, you can do a full front in order to get whatever style you want to get. But if both sides are the same, for instance, this skirt now, we are not adding any style to any side of it. So right side is the same as left. So you usually fold your fabric into 2, and then you cut what you measure and cut whatever you want to do. But on pattern, you don't need to fold your paper into anything. Just know that if you are drafting for instance, if I'm drafting for the front now, I'm going to draft like half of the front. If I'm drafting for the back, I'll draft like half of the back. It is when I want to place it on paper that I will fold. I mean, if I want to place on fabric, that's when I will fold my fabric into 2 and then cut out what I have done on my paper. So for skirt, I'm doing the 2 sides. I'm doing both front and back side by side. That's how we draft the skirt pattern. So on my left, is going to be my back pattern. And then on my right, it will be my front. So I have divided the paper into 2 equal parts. So now I'm going to start to draft. The center front hip depth and the side hip depth, as I explained the other time, I said I removed a 1/4 inch from. It gives me 8 1/4. So I'm going to come to the center, this center line, and I'm going to mark that 8 1/4 inches. So, and then I'm going to come to the center back. This is like the back, the center of the back. I'm going to do my 8 1/4. The same thing for the front, 8 1/4. Then I'm going to rule that line out. This is a major line because it forms our hip length. This is our hip length measurement. Again, how we got this hip length measurement is that we measured from our side waist to our hip. From the side of your body, you measure from the waist on the side of your body to the level where your hip is on your side. It gave us 8 1/2. So that 8 1/2, I removed a 1/4 inch from it. That is what I measured here now. So after doing that, and I have moved the line all through from back to front. So the next thing is to take my hip, and I've told us how I arrived at my hip measurement. So the hip arc, that's what we call it. There's hip arc, front hip arc, back hip arc. So the first thing I'm going to draft now is my back hip arc. That's what I'm going to measure now. So I'm going to come to this line. This line stands as our starting line. It's like the waist, temporary waist line. So, but that is where I will first measure my hip measurement. Okay, so 7 inches now. I'm going to now be adding my darts. Darts are very important. So this is the back hip measurement now. Hip arc back is 9 3/4 according to the calculation that we did. So I measured 9 3/4 here. 9 3/4. Okay, so this 9 3/4, I'm going to add ease to it. What do I mean by ease? When you measure your clients, you don't measure loosely, you measure tightly. So if you measure tightly, you want to create a little allowance for movement. Usually, it could be, you might not need it, especially if you are dealing with someone that is an average size. But if it's a plus size, you might need that allowance because it will help with the extra flesh so that the person can easily wear the skirt. So that is the reason for the ease. So the ease I'm adding is going to be a 1/4 inch. So for this 9 3/4, I added a 1/4 inch, it becomes 10. So I'm going to put that 10 here. I've marked the 10. Then I will now go all through. You know, we're measuring from the middle, from this middle line here. So this 10, I'm going to take it all through down the length of the thread. And then I'm going to rule the line. So that's done. Then for the front, I'm doing the same. My front, and the arc for front is 9 1/4 according to our measurement. So I'm going to add this again to that 9 1/4, and that will give me 9 1/2. So for the front, I'm going to come again from the middle here and measure 9 1/2 all through. Then I'm rolling the line also. So now that I've done this, this now becomes my center back here. I will see the center back, and this becomes my center front. The hip is the widest part of this skirt, so there's nowhere it can't exit this side unless you want to do a different side. Maybe you want to add flare. So that's why I'm holding that line. That is the margin for the skirt. So the next thing is to deal with the waist measurement, because now we're almost done with our basic skirt. We're just going to add our darks and we're done. But we need to know our waist measurement also. We need to apply our waist measurement. So you know that for the hip, I said that, okay, so Luani is asking me how I made the center. I would keep that question till question time, so that I will answer your question just in a bit. So for the waist measurement, I said our waist measurement for this size is 28 inches. So I'm also going to be dividing the waist measurement into 4. So 28 divided by 4. Okay. 28 divided by 4 gives us 7. So this 7 now, I'm going to take this 7 for the front. So for the waist, it is the front waist that is bigger than the back waist. We see that because of the tummy, the front waist is usually bigger than the back waist. So for the front, I'm going to say 7 plus 1/4. I say for a medium-sized person, you can do ½ inch for plus size. So this is our front waist now. Our front waist becomes 7 1/4. For our back waist, because the back waist is now smaller, so whatever we deducted from the front, whatever we added to the front, we're deducting from the back. So now our back waist will be 7 minus 1/4 for a medium-sized person. If it is plus size, you can add up to half. I mean, you can subtract up to half. So what we have now is 6 3/4. This is our back waist. This is our front waist. I hope you can all understand this. If you don't understand, we'll get to the question part. So now I'm going to come to where I said it's my waist, temporary waistline that I've put here, my starting point. So for the back, I will say the waist measurement for the back is 6 3/4. So and I said we normally add ease to any measurement. So especially the circumference measurements. So for the 6 3/4, I added 1/4 inch. It becomes 7. So that 7, I'm going to. Okay. So we can proceed. Okay. Someone wanted me to brush over what we did earlier. Here we have our paper divided into 2. And what we did, how we got this division is that first we measured from the margin. I measured 1 inch. I wanted to create a new margin for my pattern. So that's the reason for this top line that you're seeing. And then from this line, I measure the length of the skirt. For basic skirt, you just measure to your knee length. If you need to add length, that will be later when you decide the style you want to create. So after doing that, I measured the size of my paper that I want to use. I multiplied my hip arc, back hip arc, and multiplied by 2, and I added 4 inches. It's just that 4 inches is just random. I just wanted enough space on both sides. As you can see, we have some space left here which we will not be using, and then some space left here also which we will not be using. These are center front, these are center back. So I just wanted enough paper to work with. That was why I added 4 inches. So my back hip measurement is 9 3/4. I just rounded it up to 10, and I say 10 times 2 gave me 20. And then I added 4 inches just for space. So that gave me this 24 inches width for my paper. So after doing that, I divided the whole paper into 2 equally. And that gave me 12 on each side. That's how I got this paper divided like this. So, and then this center line that I've used to divide the 2 sides is going to be the division between the front and the back skirt. So the way we do pattern is that you don't fold paper to create whatever you want to do. You do a single sheet, especially if it is whatever you are doing is the same on both sides. If you have different design on either side, you can fold paper into 2. But if the both sides is the same, there's no need to fold your paper into 2 until you are placing on fabric. When you are placing on fabric, that's when you would fold your paper into 2. And you have indicated your center front and your center back before doing that. So now that I've divided the paper into 2, on my left is going to be my back skirt, and on my right is going to be my front skirt. So then I talked about a measurement, which is the measurement that you take from we usually call it our hip length. Everybody calls it hip length. So you take it from your waist on your side, you take that measurement down to your hip level. That's your side hip depth. So that side hip depth for this measurement is 8.5. So I took that 8.5 and I removed a 1/4 inch from it. And then I now put that measurement on this center line, aside from the top line here, to this line here, to this point here. And that gave me 8.25. So this 8.25, I took it all through the width of the paper. And that's how I have this line now. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. I believe all those that didn't get it earlier, I believe that by now you should have gotten how we got here. So now the next thing is, I'm going to talk about so after doing that, and now my back hip measurement also. I've explained how I got my back hip measurement. So I added ease. I said you must add ease to anything you are doing, especially in pattern drafting, because you don't want your clothes to be too clingy, such a way that the person can't move. So if you add ease, if as fitting you feel it's too much, you can remove it, but you won't be removing too much because the ease you are adding is not too much. So for this pattern drafting class, I'm adding a 1/4 inch. So now, because this is my hip level now, I'm going to come to this hip and measure that back hip because this is my back. So my back hip is 8 3/4. Yes. My back hip is 8 3/4 here that I put here. So 8 3/4, I'm adding is a 1/4 inch is makes it become 10 inches. So I'm going to mark that 10 inches there, and that's what I did. I marked 10 inches here, but I'm not just going to be marking it here alone. I marked it on top here too, at the waist, and I marked it down also at the hem. Then for the front, I did the same. The hip measurement, I added it. I marked at the hip, I marked at the waist, and then I marked at the hem. And that is how we got all these lines that we have here now. I believe we understand up to this level. So the next thing is to put in our waist measurement. So, and we have already explained how we got our waist measurement. So we're just going to be putting it on the paper. Our back waist measurement is 6 3/4. So if we add a quarter to it, it becomes 7 inches. So now for the back, I'm going to be adding to that. I'm going to explain the reason why. Let me not say the reason. Dots are very important in pattern drafting because it determines the shape and the fit. So for the basket, I'm adding 2 inches dots, but there will be 2 dots. 2 dots, 1 inch each. For the front, I'll be adding half-inch dots, 2 half-inch dots, making 1 inch. So there is a table for determining the number of dots and the amount of intake that I have. I'm going to be sending to your mailboxes so that you can have it personally. There's a way it's being calculated, but I think that table is of the stress of calculating for you. There's just a table, and what that table uses is the difference between the waist and the hip measurement. It determines the number of that and the amount of intake to be done. So don't worry about how I got. I knew that it's supposed to be 2 dots, 1 inch each for the back, and then half-inch each for the front. You will get that detail in that table. So for the back, I'm adding 2 inches. So 6 3/4 plus a quarter inch is 7. 2 plus 2, that gives us 9. So this is my center back. I'm going to come here, start from here, and measure that 9 inches, and put here, and mark here. So for the center back, there's a way our the skirt is not supposed to be straight because our body contour, because of the body contour. It fits better when you put all these gaps in place. So from the top line here, I'm going to measure a quarter inch for a medium size. If it's a plus size, you can do up to half. Maybe like 43, 44, you can do up to half-inch down. So this becomes our center back hip depth. It becomes 8 inches. You will see why I marked that place very soon. So I did that. So then I come back to the center back here. My dart placement. The measurement for my dart placement that I have here is 3 1/4. So what I did is to remove half-inch for my bust span. Bust span is bust to bust divided by 2. I believe we understand what this means. Please, I hope I'm not loading with too much information. Please let me know if you understand what I just said, please. In the comments, let me know. Bust to bust measurement, that is bust span. I divided it by 2. And then, for instance, here, that division comes to 3 3/4. So from that 3 3/4, I just removed half. And that gave me my dart placement that I'm going to use for this skirt. So please, if you understand, let me know. What's that? Someone is asking what's that. I will come back to you. Okay? What that means, nipple to nipple. Yes, you are correct. Nipple to nipple measurement. So your nipple to nipple measurement usually between 9 and 8, 7.5 for a small size person to maybe 8.5, 9. So for instance, if it is 8, divide by 2, you have 4. So from that 4, just remove half. You'll be left with 3.5. That will be your dark placement. I hope you understand this explanation. So I come here and mark that placement, 3.25 here. Remember I said I'm using 2 darts, 1 inch each. So from here, I start to place my dart. So the first dart, 1 inch. From this place, I measure down 1 inch. Then I mark the middle because I need to mark the middle so I can end the dart. So the next dart, from this second mark, I will measure 1.25. That is the space between the darts. Then I'm going to mark the second dart, 1 inch. Then at the middle of it also, if you divide that dart into 2, it's half. So divide into 2 like that. Then take your ruler, your straight ruler, the dart for the skirt. The person that is asking what is that, this is dart that we are plotting. So just look at what I am doing. The length for this dart should be 5.5. So from the waistline here, I've measured 5.5. So I'm going to take it back up. Then the first, that's the middle of the dart. Then I bring the first dart leg to that middle, the second dart leg to the middle. Now, this is a dart. So look at me. This is what we call dart. So look, can you see? Please answer me in the comments if you can. So look at me. All right, let's proceed. So the second dart, I did what I did for the first dart, I'm going to do for the second dart. I'm going to measure. If your ruler is well graduated to measure, you might not need to be taking the tape the way I'm doing. So that's the middle of the dart. I've done 5.5 inches. I bring the first dart leg to it. I bring the second dart leg to it. That is for the second dart. Please, do we all understand up to this level? Aha, Tolu Animi has answered. She understand. Okay, thank you. All right, so we have our 2 darts for the back now. So we need to complete our back skirt now. So you remember the side hip measurements that we measured at first, that I said you measure on the side, your hip level from your waist to your hip, that you measure on the side. It was 8.5 for this this side. From 8.5, and we deducted a 1/4 inch from it to mark here. So I'm going to now take that 8.5. That's what I'm going to mark here. You see this point here where the hip reaches here. I'm going to place that 8.5 there, and then the beginning of the tape, I'll slant it to where I've marked my waist measurement here, and I'll mark. Please, if you don't understand what I just did, let me know. So now that I've marked it, I'm taking my curve, because now it's no more a straight line. Your body is not straight at that place, it is curved. So I'm going to be using that curve to create that line. So I'm coming from where I've marked up here to the waist level. You see that our skirt is coming out now. So this is my hip curve for the basket. Then, after doing that, remember also that we have come down a 1/4 inch from the center back, from up here. So I'm going to now take my curved ruler again from this side mark to down mark that I put here. I will get my waist curve. So to make it clearer, I will use a red marker so that it will be more distinct. So that's it. And then for the sides too, I'm doing the same. So can you see? This is our basket now. This is the center back. We're going to be removing this, all this part because we don't need it. And even here. So, but let's complete it by doing the front skirt now. So for the front, I've said that we're using 2 darts also for the front, 1/2 inch each. So our front waist are 7.5. So I will add a 1/4 inch each to that 7.5. It becomes, no, sorry, I said 7.5. 7.25. That's our waist arc for front. So that's 7.25. I'm going to add a 1/4 to it. 7.25 plus a 1/4 gives us 7.5. All this fraction measurements, if there's anyone that does not understand, after this class, you might just need to chat me up or leave a message on the group here. You can leave a message on the group if you don't understand all these calculations, fractions, half, quarter, and all that. So now I said 7.25 plus a 1/4 gives us 7.5. So that 7.5, I'm adding 2 upper darts. That is 1 to the 7.5. It becomes 8.5. So from the center front here, I'm going to do that 8.5 and mark it. So after marking the 8.5, we're going to take our dart placement from the center front again, which is 3.25. So I mark that 3.25 here, and then I do my first dart, which is 1/2 inch. Divide it into 2 to get the center. Then a space of 1.25 again, just like I did for the back. A space of 1.25 inch. I mark the second dart, locate the middle. Then I take my ruler again. For the skirt, the front dart is 3.5. These are standards. For the back, the length of the dart is 5.5. You can do more or less depending on the style you want to create. That will determine the alteration. So for this dart now, the front dart is 3.5 inches long. So I'm going to mark that 3.5 inches long for both darts and rule it. And then I'm going to close the dart leg. Close the dart front. Yeah. So we have our 2 darts for both front and back. Then for the side, what I did for back side is what I'm going to do for front side. The 8.5 taken from the hip level here, slanted to where the waist mark is here. So I then rule just like I did using my cup ruler. Using my cup ruler. So the other battery is charging. Hello? Yeah. Other battery is charging. Okay. Okay, so I have my front hip have drawn like that. Then, we didn't need to go down here because this is the original center front hip depth that we got here. So that one is just for the center front, and this is the center front. So it remains like this. So I'm going to come from that side hip measurement and then mark here. So now let me make it more distinct like I did for the back. So now we have our complete set. I believe you can see also from the waist to the this is our step now that we have. So this is our center front, this is our center back. For you to understand, you do not need this excess. I told you the width of the paper is that much because I needed enough space. If you feel you don't have enough paper, you want to manage your paper, you might decide to use a smaller width based on your back hip calculation. So I'm cutting away the excess paper that is not needed. This is our center back. This is our center front. And then I'm also going to be cutting away so this is what we have at the end of the day. So it is important that you label your pattern. You can, if it is a ready to wear that it's a particular size, just put it there, like basic skirt, size 8, basic skirt back, size 8, basic skirt front, size 8. If it's a particular, if you have drafted for a particular client, put the name of the client there. You might even put the date there. It helps you to trace when you did it, and maybe if you need to measure your client or something. So this is original pattern. You don't destroy it. So if you are going to use this to create any other design, you're going to trace it out. So maybe in our next class, I'll show you how to trace out your pattern and all that. So this is kept so that anytime you want to design for this particular size or this particular client, just take it out, put it on a fresh sheet of paper, trace it out, mark it, and then you can start to create. Maybe you want to create a long skirt, maybe you want to create a flared skirt, you manipulate it. But this that you're seeing, you can use it to create any type of skirt, any style of skirt at all, with some modifications. So I believe that makes us come to the end of the class. Center front, center back. The center front is placed on a fold. You fold your fabric, and then this is the center. This is placed on the center. But the center back, you know that your center back must have seam allowance. Another thing is that this pattern does not have seam allowance. It is exact measurement. So if you are designing it, you must determine the seam allowance you want to add.
Usually for me, for ready to wear, I add half-inch seam allowance on the sides and then even places where you're going to join. But if it is bespoke, maybe for a particular client, I can decide to add up to 1 inch. So I think that brings us to the end of the basic skirt class. Thank you very much. Now, questions. I believe more questions can come in at this point. So the floor is open now. Questions, comments, feedback, please. I need feedback. Otherwise, we'll not do class tomorrow. If I don't have feedback, maybe people don't like the class. Okay. So, how was center, front, and back calculated? Okay. We'll start taking that one by one. Okay. This one. Question and presentation. Okay.